the longer you work in the legal system, the less routine the world becomes. You start to see that the most common cases, they aren't the whole story.
Not at all. And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We're trying to pull back the curtain on the most vulnerable parts of the justice system.
We're talking about wrongful accusations.
Right.
And systemic corruption.
Exactly. And maybe the most shocking part of it all, this deeply human thing of just refusing to admit you are wrong.
Okay, let's start there, because that idea, that resistance to admitting fault, it goes way beyond the justice system.
Oh, absolutely. The journalist Malcolm Gladwell, he saw this firsthand watching pharmaceutical executives testify before Congress about the opioid crisis.
I remember this. They just could not bring themselves to say the words wrongdoing.
Never. The phrase they used was that their drug was associated with addiction. It's this kind of passive blame-shifting language.
Linguistic gymnastics.
That's the perfect term for it. And you see how that same inability to just say, I was wrong, completely warps the justice process.
It's not usually a cop deciding, I'm going to frame this person. It's more subtle.
Yeah, it's almost always more subtle. It's a detective who gets a bad hunch, an early theory, and then just can't let it go. The professional embarrassment of being wrong is too great.
So they refuse to course correct. And they start, manufacturing evidence to fit that first bad idea.
And that's where the system just breaks down. It becomes so fragile.
So today we have two really astonishing cases to illustrate this. The first shows the danger of subjectivity in forensic science.
And the second exposes what a perfect storm of systemic, deep-rooted corruption can do to an innocent person's life.
Let's start with a case that began over a petty community tennis dispute, which is just an unbelievable starting point.
It really is. We're talking about Ike and Lori Perlmutter. Now, Ike is the reclusive former chairman of Marvel, so they have immense resources.
And even that couldn't protect them from what was about to happen.
Not at all. Their neighbor just got consumed by this petty argument and became totally convinced the Perlmutters were out to get him.
So he decides to become a vigilante.
In a way, yeah. He hires a former crime scene analyst and a retired deputy chief of police.
Wow.
To steal their DNA.
And the way they did it is just unnerving. The source material shows how they did it during a deposition.
It was meticulous. They made sure not to handle any paper Ike Perlmutter touched. And Lori's water bottle, they isolated it to make sure no one else's DNA got on it.
This is like surveillance level stuff, but carried out by private citizens.
Citizens with law enforcement training, which is the key. So fast forward a year, horrific anti-Semitic hate mail starts showing up in the community.
And the neighbor, of course, thinks it's the Perlmutters.
He's convinced. And now he has their stolen DNA. This is where the whole forensic process just implodes.
He takes the samples to an unaccredited lab. That's the first huge warning sign.
A massive one.
Yeah.
And this lab was clearly being pressured to find a specific result. So they used a DNA run that the professional accredited lab had already thrown out.
So why did the accredited lab discard it? That's the critical piece, right?
It's everything. Their technician had made a simple, honest mistake. He'd accidentally mixed some of Lori's DNA sample into what's called the positive control mixture.
Which is the sample they use just to make sure the machine is working correctly.
Exactly. So the technician knew 100% that the results were contaminated and completely invalid. He did the right thing and threw them out.
But the unaccredited lab, looking for a particular outcome, grabbed those tainted results.
Right, the results that falsely showed Lori's DNA. And they used that to implicate her in sending hate mail. It's the exact opposite of objective science.
Thankfully, the truth came out. There was a $50 million verdict against the neighbor for defamation.
A very satisfying $50 million. But the lesson for you listening is just how fragile even DNA evidence, the supposed holy grail, can be.
Because subjectivity is poison to science. There's research that shows if you just tell a forensic analyst who the suspect is beforehand, the error rate for things like fingerprints can just skyrocket, over 80% in some cases.
And the Mutters realized that if this could happen to them with their unlimited money to fight back, then someone without those resources, they're just in so much trouble.
Okay, so that's the danger of motivated error in forensics. Let's pivot now to what happens when it's not just error, but a deep-seated institutional corruption.
This is the 1998 murder of Trevor Vieira and the wrongful conviction of a 16-year-old kid named Nelson Cruz.
And the initial facts of this case were just crystal clear.
As clear as it gets. An officer, Officer Potty, literally sees the muzzle flash. He runs out and catches the shooter, a man named Eduardo Rodriguez, with the gun still, quote, smoking in his hand.
Rodriguez is arrested. The radio call goes out. Perp in custody. It should be over.
Case closed. But then Rodriguez gets handed over to Detective Luis Garcella.
And Garcella is a name you need to know. He's notorious in Brooklyn homicide.
Notorious is the word. He's been linked to at least 21 vacated convictions for framing people. So he and his team, they just manufacture a whole new story.
What was the story?
That Rodriguez just picked up the gun after someone else dropped it, and that the real killer was this 16-year-old kid, Nelson Cruz.
But wait a minute. How does that happen? The arresting officer, Perotti, saw Rodriguez with the gun. He made the arrest. How does Garcella just ignore that?
Because Garcella's whole team just ran right over that initial testimony. They had their story, and they stuck to it.
So Cruz was charged and convicted.
In a 3-day trial, based only on the testimony of one witness, Audrey Bellinger, who was completely coached. They told him who the suspect was, what gun was used, all gross violations of practice.
And Rodriguez, the man caught with the actual murder weapon.
Never even took the stand.
The human cost is just... I mean, Cruz served 26 years.
26 years. He got out in 2023 with severe anxiety, paranoia, just destroyed by the system, even though he was, quote, stone-cold innocent.
And the injustices just kept coming even after he was convicted.
Oh, yeah. This detail is horrifying. A post-conviction hearing ruled against him. The judge who led that ruling, she later had to resign. Advanced Alzheimer's disease. A ProPublica investigation confirmed with an affidavit that she'd been suffering symptoms for years before she made that ruling that kept an innocent man in prison.
That is just unbelievable. So why isn't the real killer, Rodriguez, being prosecuted now that Cruz is out?
And that gets to this really important legal concept you have to understand. Qualified immunity.
The legal shield for government officials.
Right. It makes it incredibly difficult to sue them. So corrupt officers like Garcella, they deny everything and face no punishment. If the city exonerates Cruz, they are admitting Garcella knowingly put an innocent kid in prison.
And that admission opens them up to a massive civil lawsuit, a huge financial penalty.
And there's the perverse incentive. The city has a financial reason to deny the conviction was wrong, which means they refuse to retry the real killer, Rodriguez, because officially admitting what happened would cost them millions.
The cost of admitting fault outweighs the moral cost of letting a murderer walk free.
It's the Gladwell effect, but applied to a city budget.
Okay, so let's move from that kind of systemic rot to the very top, to executive clemency. This is supposed to be the fail-safe.
It's supposed to be. But if people with resources like the Perlmutter struggle, you can imagine how hard it is for those without them. Clemency should be that second chance, but politics it warps the whole process.
The case of Michael Giles in Florida is a perfect example.
It's just heartbreaking. He was an Air Force veteran, no prior criminal record at all. He got convicted under Florida's really harsh, mandatory minimum laws.
What happened?
He was on leave, got caught up in this big street fight. The aggressor even testified that he ran and leaped through the air to, quote, knock out Giles.
So Giles shot him in the leg, basically in self-defense.
A classic self-defense claim.
Yeah.
And for that, he got 25 years.
25 years. He served 15 of those with a perfect prison record.
Not a single ticket. He had overwhelming support for clemency. We're talking prominent Republicans like former Attorney General John Ashcroft, plus a positive recommendation from Florida's own review board.
And yet Governor DeSantis denied him mercy at the very last second.
With no reason given. Just no. And it gets even more disturbing when you look at the prosecutor in that area, Jack Campbell. A memo from his office was found.
What did it say?
It was explicitly targeting Hispanic defendants for harsher punishment. The phrase extensive criminal history and/or Hispanic was written in all caps.
So that bias is baked in from the very beginning all the way to the end.
From the charging decision right up to the final plea for mercy. And you see this same inflexibility in immigration policy.
Right. There's the case of the Albanian green card holder.
Yeah, he came to the U.S. back in the 70s. When he was young, in his 20s, he killed a gas station attendant. It was an altercation very close to self-defense. The attendant had actually shot his brother first over a dispute about a $100 bill.
He served less than 4 years for that. And what's happened since?
51 years. 51 years of living a crime-free life. He paid taxes, joined a union, raised a family, 5 kids, 8 grandkids.
But because of that one conviction from a half-century ago?
He's now facing deportation to Montenegro, a country he hasn't even seen since he was a child. The law has no room for mercy or context. It just sees the conviction and throws away 51 years of a good life.
It's a black box. Pardons can feel so arbitrary. Political favors, family members, sometimes they're even signed with an auto pen and machine.
Which shows how little personal attention is sometimes paid. But there is a positive step. Alice Johnson, who was pardoned herself, is now working inside the system as the pardon czar.
Bringing that lived experience to the process, which is essential.
It's so essential. When we talk about justice, we have to talk about the absurdity of our old drug laws, too.
Which have created so much human tragedy. So many people are still in prison today based on these old arbitrary rules, like the huge sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine.
Exactly. People like Spencer Bowens, Emory Jones, they've spent decades in prison, long after the laws they were sentenced under have been thrown out or reformed.
These are people who, by all accounts, are rehabilitated. They're mentors in prison, but they're stuck.
And the Larry Hoover case is the most extreme example of that political paralysis. He's 75 years old. He served over 50 years on an old Illinois sentence.
President Trump commuted his federal sentence, right?
He did. But Hoover is still in state custody for allegedly ordering a murder. And here's the kicker. The person who actually committed that murder was paroled 30 years ago.
But the political cost of releasing a high-profile name like Larry Hoover is just too high for the governor.
It's pure politics. Which brings us to the big paradox at the heart of all of this, the prohibition paradox.
Why is alcohol legal? I mean, it's addictive, it's destructive, it's linked to so much violence, yet marijuana and cocaine are criminalized.
Look at the international evidence. Countries like Portugal that had decriminalized drugs, their crime rates and overdose rates have plummeted.
Because the real danger is the illegal market. Prohibition creates artificial scarcity, high prices, and the cartels thrive.
And even more critically, that unregulated supply gets mixed with deadly things like fentanyl. That's what's driving the overdose epidemic. We are creating a market that kills people. We learned this lesson with alcohol prohibition, and then we just forgot it.
So after all this, what's the takeaway for you listening right now? It seems that our systems of justice, of clemency, of drug policy, they are all just consistently warped.
Warped by politics, by that refusal to admit error we talked about, and by, well, historical self-interest.
And if you want to make a difference, you have to start local. Demand that local prosecutors are reviewed. Look at cases like the Ohio 4, where the truth seems clear but nothing happens.
Don't just rely on the headlines. Read the public records. Read the trial transcripts. Make your own judgment about who is being honest and who is just protecting their ego or their budget.
We have to shine a light on these things.
And here's a final provocative thought for you. Let's connect this refusal to admit error all the way back to pure economic self-interest. Why were drugs criminalized in the first place?
The story of marijuana is, it's a conspiracy.
It really is. It was driven by William Randolph Hearst. He owned vast forests, paper mills, and he saw industrial hemp as a superior, cheaper threat to his entire business.
Especially after the invention of a machine, the decorticator, that made processing hemp fiber easy.
So what did he do? He used his massive newspaper empire to launch a propaganda campaign. He created racial hysteria. We know today as reefer madness.
All to protect his profits. And it led to 90 years of incarceration, death, and suffering.
It's the same mindset as the light bulb conspiracy, where companies design bulbs to burn out faster so you'd have to buy more. It is pure self-interest, suppressing a truth that could benefit everyone. That's the truth, crushed to earth that has to rise again.
And on that note, as we deal with the weight of these stories, these ongoing traumas, whether it's through the legal fight or through new tools to process trauma, things like EMDR or ketamine therapy, the fight for empathy and for truth, it has to continue.